So, what's up, y'all? So, we got the post game breakdown from the Philippines versus Indonesia SEA Games match. So, I'm gonna give you some of my take and what I seen, and just give you a whole breakdown of the game. So, it was a great game. It was a good fought battle by both sides. Indonesia really came out hot. They really came out and was focused in the first quarter right off the bat, led by Derek Michael. Derek had 17 in the first quarter. They were getting him the ball in the right places, and he was finishing. So credit to him. He even hit 2 threes, which is he had a great shooting game. He finished off with 22 points and 15 rebounds. Monster game. Against 17 came in the first quarter, so he really set the tone for the Indonesian team. But the Philippines, they adjusted. They adjusted in the second quarter. They adjusted their defense. They were picking up the ball pressure. They were getting more physical. And one thing I noticed about their adjustment is they were switching in all screens, all ball screens. They were switching, and this is the problem when we're not able to. Indonesia is not able to execute with post play. They're not able to take advantage of some mismatches or what should be mismatches in terms of on a switch like that. You can't have a guard switch on a big, and you have to make them pay. You got to be able to understand how to seal and how to get the ball down there, and whether you make the shot or not, but you gotta create fouls. You gotta create help side where you could get it in, ball comes in, and you could kick it out. That's when your shooters really are effective. Also, for guard play on these switches, Indonesia doesn't have a guard that can break down the defense one on one to create different situations and utilize that mismatch. When a big is switched on to a guard, you should make them pay by creating a situation where you're getting in the middle of the lane, drawing the defense and kicking out, things like that. So, those are some things that I saw. The Philippines really adjusted well with the switches on ball screens, and that kind of made Indonesia's offense. It took them far away from attack positions, far away from the rim. So they were executing, real far away from the rim, which is not really a threat. So Philippines, then in the second quarter, they build up their lead. And 30 Ravenna really came up big. 30 Ravenna really came up big. He had 16 points. He led the way for the Philippines. But overall, I think they had a collective effort offensively for the Philippines. We had Ravenna with 16, Malazzo with 13, Arcs with 12, Alec with 10, Aram with 9, Wright had 5 big buckets too. So, those were some things that kind of made their offense flow. In the fourth quarter, they were, I thought the Philippines were extra passing, overpassing a little too much. I thought the Philippines were overpassing in the fourth. They could have executed, but they had a comfortable lead by as much as 16 points. They started to get a little too unselfish, and shots weren't falling. And Indonesia, credit to Indonesia, they were able to stick with it and cut that lead down to 3 at the end there. So shout out to Indonesia for that. They really fought to the end. But, in the fourth quarter, Coach Black for the Philippines, I think he drew up a pretty good play out of the break there between third and the fourth. They came out and Matthew Wright was able to get a corner 3. So that was a great play he drew up right there, which was really a momentum killer at that point. But just the little details like that. So your coach's adjustments are super important. Indonesia got two shot clock violations at the end there where they needed a basket in these possessions. I think Abraham had it in the corner for that last shot. And, it was when you get in a corner like that and you need a 3, it's a difficult position to be in. And he kicked it back out to Derek, but the shot clock ran out of time. But being in a corner in that situation, you're either going to get doubled and you have a big on you. You have 2 bigs on you, Milazzo, and then the other big was on you. There in a corner, it's hard to get that shot off a good clean look at the basket at all. So I'm not sure exactly what the play was supposed to be, but it ended up there in the corner, and Indonesia couldn't get a good shot. But I think Philippines, we all know the Philippines are going to make adjustments after the first quarter. They're going to adjust their defense. I think one thing about the Philippines is in the beginning, they're going to see how They're kind of gonna read how you're playing, what's your system like, and then they're gonna adjust to it really quickly. That's always the Philippines are always like that. Credit to Indonesia, they're gonna be playing for the bronze medal game. A good fight, good fight. I'm glad they didn't give up and they showed some heart. There's a lot of work to do for Indonesia. A lot of self reflection. Going on into the future. The Philippines, I think they have a shot to win gold for sure. I've said that before. You know, the reality is this team from the Philippines, they were put together, in a short period of time. These guys are building chemistry by each game in the SEA Games. This is kind of like their practice. Each game goes by, their chemistry is getting better and better. Their trust in each other is getting better and better. And the system is getting better and better. So, it's a tough situation for them to be in. So a lot of these guys were called in last minute because they originally had a different roster. We know that, and but they showed that why they showed why they're one of the best in basketball as far as execution, talent, understanding of the game, and you've seen the difference between the understanding of the game, decision making, simple IQ plays between versus them and Indonesia. You've seen the difference there. Guys executed well. They made the right pass. A lot of times, especially in the second half when they were building that lead, guys could have executed themselves, but they made the extra play and the extra kick to get a better shot. And then the guy would do the same thing to create a better shot for another teammate. And sometimes that was at a fault. Sometimes they didn't, they were doing it a little too much. But that just shows you the IQ, understanding pace of the Philippines. And I think that was missing in Indonesia. Going forward, Indonesia, I think, they have shooters. Everyone knows of Indonesia is like, okay, they got some shooters and, they're going to play fast. But, you have to have good guard play. You have to have understanding of how to control pace as a guard. So this is something Indonesia, I think, really needs to look at going forward. There's one thing about scoring, but sometimes when you're up and you have the momentum, you have to understand when to push it and when not to push it. And it's recognizing not just your opponent's energy, but your own teammates' energy as well. Sometimes if you could be up 10 but don't have the momentum, and you have to be able to read that as a guard. You have to be able to understand it as a guard. Sometimes it's we're pushing it and pulling it back to get an easier basket, if that makes sense. So it's understanding pace, timing, and rhythm as a guard. And if Indonesia can get a guard that can control that pace and tempo of the game, make those reads, it's going to be a game changer for them going forward. You can't just be restricted to going one speed and catch, shoot, one dribble, shoot, and that's it. You need an actual point guard that can control the tempo, understand that, okay, maybe my guys, maybe not every one of my teammates understands the tempo of this, or maybe they're tired. Just because I understand it, I have to make them comfortable and understand this too. So if we're up, if we got an 8-point lead and I'm pushing it, I'm pushing it. I see a seam, I see an opening. But if we miss this shot, the other team definitely has this momentum, even though we're up 8. So if I miss this shot, they get the rebound. They score. It's going to kill the morale of my team. You can be up 8, 10, 12 points and still not have the momentum. One shot changes. You hit a shot here, 2, they come down and hit it 3. You miss the next one, they come down and hit it 2. I mean, it's game changer. So it's understanding when to execute, when not to execute, when to pull back, deceptively pull back, and then go again. Understanding your team's energy, your opponent's energy. It's all psychological too. So understanding those little nuances in the game as a point guard, that's why it's one of the hardest positions to play in basketball, but that's something that I believe Indonesia needs going into the future if they want to level up in the international level, for sure. Also, post play is big. Again, we couldn't execute. Indonesia couldn't execute in the end. When Philippines tighten up their defense, I've always looked at it like you have to have some kind of post presence, post relief, where you could give it to one of your post players and he can create something off a post play, back to the basket, face up, what have you. But he can create either for himself or for a teammate. He can draw the defense. And that's something that Indonesia still lacks right now. It's Indonesia. You can't just be one dimensional in a sense where it's come off a pick and roll, either pop, shot, or nothing there, swing, shot, one dribble, swing back. It's very predictable. And you've seen that as the Philippines adjusted their defense. They were able to switch everything. No one's diving, no one's sealing. When defense gets tighter, it changes a lot of things. So I think those are some key points that Indonesia needs to focus on going forward. Again, credit to them for having heart and staying in the game. Credit to the Philippines for executing down the stretch. Bobby Parks made some huge baskets. Alonzo played big. He shot well this game. I think he had like 2 or 3 threes. Bali played a great game. And again, it goes back to execution as a point guard. He controlled the pace of the game. He was never in a rush. He made some dumb plays there, and I think he was just getting overconfident at times. But you could see his pace and his tempo. He understands when to go, when not to go, when to pull it back, when to hesitate, when to take it, when to execute and get a bucket, and when to look for his teammates and who to get involved. I mean, those are the little details a lot of people don't see, but those are the crucial details. And Indonesia didn't have that on their side in terms of that type of execution and reads and a player that can do that. Even Ravenna, same thing. He controlled the pace and the tempo, and something about post execution, a post threat. Even Ravenna was a post threat. I know he's a perimeter player, he's a guard, but he was able to execute and create something off post play, mid post, back to the basket, face up. I mean, he created havoc there. I think he had two huge buckets in the post there, and that drew the defense. And he was able to make those reads, kick out, find guys, drop down to their big and little finishes. But all around, great game. In the Philippines versus Thailand in the finals, I'll have a post-game breakdown of that game too. It's going to be I think it's going to be a great game. I think Philippines, as you're seeing their chemistry build, they're getting better, trusting each other more defensively, offensively. They're starting to understand the flow, and I think they're going to be dangerous. Thailand, of course, they're dangerous. They're playing at home, and they have some really good bigs. They got good post presence. It's going to cause havoc for the Philippines. We'll see how the Philippines adjust to that. Freddie, we'll see what he got in his bag, and Moses. But I think it's pretty evenly matched at this point as the Philippines are getting better and better with their chemistry. So it's going to be exciting to see. I'll have a full game breakdown of the gold medal game after the gold medal SEA Games match. So stay tuned, y'all. Uncle Rose Take, signing out.